back then, black officers, period, didn't work the West Side. And I remember when I got assigned there, and my lieutenant, when he did it, he's like, Spanky Gallagher, he was so funny, and he's like, we're gonna teach these white folks over here on the West Side. They got to get into the 20th century.
"40 Years of the Business Journal" is sponsored by Compco and these participating sponsors.
What led you to join YPD, Youngstown Police Department?
I needed a job. It was a fluke. I had been laid off from the unemployment office. Remember, we used to have one up on South Avenue, and one of the criteria.
You had worked there? Or?
I worked there. Yeah.
Okay.
And I was laid off from there, and so I was applying for unemployment benefits. Back then, you had to actually apply.
Every week.
Every week, and you had to do it in person, okay? In order to get your benefits, you had to be actively looking for a job. And so one of the things that I did, now remember, I was still going to YSU at the time, and so I heard about the job through someone, I forget how, and went down and picked up the application. That was a job contact. I returned it. That was another job contact. Then I signed up, and so that was signed up for the test. Took the test. That was another job contact. These are all just job contacts towards my benefits. And lo and behold, because I was still intending to use my Russian, okay, and then lo and behold, I actually get called. And so went on from there. I got called for the interview and everything else, and I thought about it, and I was like, ooh, I can save the world as a police officer. So, it's like, you're young, you believe these things. And I was like, you know what, I can be, I can save the world. That was my thought process back then when you want to be a police officer.
Yeah.
That's how I thought about it. Yeah. And that's what happened. I had no intentions, zero intentions of being a police officer. And I ended up doing 36 years. So there.
What was it like joining YPD at that point? Now, this is back in '78.
Uh-huh.
Both as a woman and particularly as a black woman.
Uh-huh.
What was the racial and gender makeup of YPD back then?
We were the first women. There were 5 of us. We got hired within 2 weeks of each other.
Was Delphine in your group? Or?
Delphine was in my group.
Okay.
Before us, there was Wanda. It was Wanda Cadero, Sue Colucci, Sue Cinnamon now, Charmin Simon, Delphine Baldwin, and me, Anita Davis. We were the first 5. So it was really interesting. First off, there had been a lawsuit and all kinds of things. So we were the first hires. This is something that was going on throughout the country about going forward with hiring women. So the guys had been, of course, prepped before we got there about how they're supposed to, you behave yourselves with these young girls and everything else, and that whole skill there. The building, by the way, I'm going to say about the building itself. The building for us as female police officers, or for females on the second floor in general, it wasn't made for women, because there was the men's bathroom, that had all these stalls or latrines and things in there. And then there was a woman's bathroom, okay, which was fine for the civilian clerks and things. But it wasn't so fine for those of us who were police officers, because when we went in there, naturally, we're carrying our gun belts and things, okay?
Right.
So for us to get into this closet, and I could show you the closet right now, and you would chuckle, because you would go inside, slide between the wall and the sink, close the door, take off your gun belt, okay, put the gun belt in the sink, and then you would slide around this way to sit down and use the toilet. There's that much room. And then you did in reverse that you got ready to leave to. So that's how ready we were. And they didn't get a real women's bathroom for, I want to say probably a decade later. Just way later, before they actually made. What they did was they divided the men's bathroom up, because that's how big it was. And we end up with 2 real stalls that we can actually walk to like normal people and, and not have to turn anyway. But that's how the setup was. How we were treated. Number one, first off, some was good, some was bad. One of the things was about the job assignments. First off, they act like every woman knew how to type. So we got stuck to the desk a lot. Unfortunately, I did know how to type. I was a touch typist because I had to do my papers in college.
Right.
And I got stuck on that desk a lot. I hated it. I hated working at the desk because back then that's where you took the calls and things. And I worked index, which is back then that's where you run all the license plates and things. I got stuck there a lot. And when I wasn't stuck there, what was interesting, I worked the east side a lot. I told you I don't like the east side, but I really got stuck there a lot. It was interesting because the white officers, they didn't work the east side or the north side, because it was too rough.
Yeah.
But they would toss myself and Delphine and Wanda over there all the time. It was a while before I got a chance to work the west side, because back then, black officers, period, didn't work the west side. And I remember when I got assigned there, and my lieutenant, when he did it, he's like, Spanky Gallagher, he was so funny, and he's like, we're gonna teach these white folks over here on the west side. They got to get into the 20th century. And believe me, people did call to complain about me working over there. I was working with the white officers.
That was something I was going to get into. How did we've talked about how you were treated internally, but how did the public treat you? And at what point did there seem to be greater acceptance?
First off, there's a presumption that all of us, especially black women, that we all knew how to fight. And it's like, it's not like I got in fights studying Russian.
Yeah, right, yeah.
Okay. But there was the presumption that we knew how to handle ourselves better and things like that. And the public, it was kind of mixed. Probably more. There was again more comments made about my blackness. I heard more about my blackness than as much as being a female.
Okay.
There were some houses that we went to, especially when I started working at the other part of the South Side, the Brownlee Woods area. I mean, I had one guy who he told my partner, he goes, "You can come in. That one, she ain't stepping inside my door." And my partner said, "Well, she's not coming in, neither am I. See ya." It's that simple. But I mean, that's what it was like.
Yeah.
Because like the West Side, the Brownlee area, it was always white.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, so far as the public in terms of female, like I said, there was the expectation that we knew where I worked, because we were black, and the stereotype is that black women can handle themselves. And once in a while you get a little bit of grief, but no, I won't say for me that it was a lot more stereotyped to the opposite, which is that I did not like, which was the willingness to expose me because of the color of my skin. You did not treat. It was funny because the white officers who were women, they were resentful because they wouldn't be put to the other side of town, okay? And where it was a little rougher and they can really sink their teeth in. Whereas I'm like, I'd like to be able to sit over on the west side and have a little coochie ride for 8 hours, because you didn't have as many calls for services and things like that, period, back then. So it was just an interesting kind of dynamic.
How's the city changed in general, and specifically in terms of how blacks and women are treated nowadays,
On the police department,
both in the police department and in general?
well, the society is what it is, which is it's a sexist society. It's that simple. On the police department, I still do. Sometimes I have to correct some of these guys, these male officers. And when I was working in particular, I'm your sergeant. They wanted to call me by my first name. I would always have to correct them and say, "Excuse me, you call him sergeant, you're gonna call me sergeant. And by the way, I'm his senior." It's that kind of stuff like that. That you're gonna give him the respect according to his rank, and you're gonna call me, like I said, first name. I have that problem about guys calling me that by my first name. I have a problem with white people calling me by my first name. It's like you feel comfortable referring to me by my first name because of the color of my skin, because you're calling a white person sir or ma'am. You're calling a white patrol officer, and then you want to call it. You're gonna ask me my name. It's like Sergeant Davis. No, I need your first name. No, you don't. You need Sergeant Davis.
And you had risen to detective rank, correct?
Sergeant.
Detective sergeant.
Yes. And I had one woman who went so far as to go seek out my name. By the time she got hold of me on a follow-up, and we're sitting there, and she said, "Well, Anita," and I said, "Oh, you found out my first name?" I said, "That's ignorant on your part." I said, "I didn't give you permission to call me by my first name." I said, "It's still Sergeant Davis to you." Because we knew, we talk about privilege today. It was the same way before. Yeah, so.
What hasn't changed that needs to, that you've seen, both in terms of how society treats women and blacks, and in general in the city?
What hasn't changed?
Yeah. Where haven't we progressed?
One of the things that I found is that the lack of respect for a lot of Youngstowners for Youngstown, and conversely for people who don't live in Youngstown, who are disrespectful of Youngstown. Okay? Back when I was, again, a sergeant, Jimmy Hughes was my police chief. That's another story altogether.
Yeah.
And but I recall I was in my own car coming to work, running late, and I was coming from Boardman. I'm behind the same car, all the way down Market Street. And what I noticed is that car stopped at every traffic light in Boardman. We ended up going to the school zone, and they slowed down in the school zone, okay, up there in Boardman. And which we're supposed to do. But what I noticed is that, and I kid you not, and I'm behind this car the whole time, and it was not speeding. We hit the city limits of Youngstown. We hit that sign up there on Market Street that says Youngstown, welcome to Youngstown, or Youngstown. And at that point, the speed limit drops, okay? That car sped up. That's what I noticed. And I was like, this can't be. This is crazy, because our speed limit is less. I stayed behind this car. I kept with it, just to see if I'm crazy. And we hit the school zone at the old South High when it was the academy, and they didn't slow down. And they didn't slow down again and again, and it kept speeding up. It's like, you maintained the speed limit. So of course I got into a huff internally.
Yeah.
And I went in there, Jimmy. They're not respecting the Youngstown's speed limits. That's disrespectful. And so I did my follow-up. When I would stop people, and they would say, "You have to have something better to do in Youngstown than be stopping people for a traffic violation." And I said, as a matter of fact, I don't, because I was in charge of traffic.
Yeah.
Dog. And so it just, and that thing still goes forward today. That both from inside and outside, where You see it time and again where they'll turn the sound down when they go to certain areas, turn it back up. You know, we have more cops out here on the street than they do in Poland, but no one's a fool who doesn't. They slow down. You hit Poland, what do? So that kind of thing. So I see that, and that's a part of the ongoing problem, I think, for a lot of our issues. If you do the small things, the bigger things will follow. But if you tend to neglect, if you have a tire on the side and you don't pick it up, somebody's going to add to that tire on the side of the road. Okay? So you deal with these small things, and the larger things will follow. For most people, normal people, they see something that's taken care of, that's maintained, etc., they will give that area respect. Okay? But you let it go. You know, one of the things, and I tell people, I said, I do compare Youngstown to Boardman a lot. On the good part, which is Youngstown, there's things that we should be doing just like in Boardman. You know, I'm a nerd. You go down my street, you can when you see my house, you say, yeah, she cuts her grass like every other day, doesn't she? And so do my neighbors. Which is what they have in Boardman. I mean, so that's how, but that neighborhood thing, keeping that stuff going, everything else, that brings up your neighborhood, changes the mindset of people. My friend owns flambeaux. And one thing that happened, you know, the Family Dollar went across the street.
Yeah.
Was across the street. They had bars on their windows at Family Dollar. When Sandy and them did flambeaux, they took the bars off their place and never had a problem. After about, even 2-3 months, Sandy still has the bars from when they took the bars off of the Family Dollar right there across the street from her. Because they saw, hey, she doesn't have bars. We don't need bars on the windows. So it's something that kind of rubs off.
So what led you to run for Youngstown City Council? I can think of other things I'd rather do in retirement.
No. I knew I wasn't moving anywhere. I had my mom. Number one, that was a big part. There were things that I was not satisfied with at the Youngstown Police Department. And again, it goes back to this thing that I thought I can effectuate change there. I did not, and I still don't think that we're getting the necessary services, the proper amount of services, the quality of it and the amount of it that we should be getting out of our safety, not just our safety services, but there in particular, but with our departments in general. You know, I'm gonna give you the nerdy part. You know, the budget for the Youngstown Police Department for this year is $22 million. Think about that, $22 million. We have a budget for our police department that you can combine the cities around us, and it doesn't equal. Okay, we have a total budget of $220 million. I said this as soon as I found out the city's budget, way back when, I said, we have that kind of money and the city is looking like this. I'm just talking about the visual of it. It's like, why is it looking so bad? And it's still not, it looks gray now. Not forget my hair, okay, but it's just gray looking. And I'm just, one of the things I want to do is make sure that, to the best of my ability, that these services were being maintained, that we were paying for. When I was running, I went to this one area from where I used to live, one street over, and I hadn't been there in years. I'm driving down Chicago, and it looked like the land that time forgot. Like nothing was done there. The people were still living there, but it was like, what in the world? This is Youngstown, Ohio, South Side. Overgrown like crazy. And again, small things. A street sign. We make our street signs. The no parking sign. We make all of our own signs. And yet they're rusted out, and I'm rusted and faded, and we make our own because you don't do the barest thing. I use my phone. I do see-click fix, and every time I see a missing street sign, arrested out sign, and stuff like that, I report it because, like, come on, forget about you're telling me you can't do this thing because it's too big, but this is a simple thing. That's about intentional neglect. So, okay, that's my preach for today, and that's one reason why I ran for city council, because of what I saw. I know things are gonna. I know, I know because of what's going on down in Columbus, because we're gonna get the trickle effect. Because they're still working on the thing with Intel. It was Microsoft.
Intel.
Yeah, down in
Chip
Columbus.
factory, yeah.
Chip factory. That is gonna. It's gonna have an impact on Youngstown. It could have had a greater impact on Youngstown had we not had a butthead Republican governor years ago who refused that high-speed rail. If they had done the high-speed rail, it would have taken a half an hour, or half an hour, 45 minutes to go from Youngstown to Columbus, as opposed to now they still got to drive.
Right.
So we would have had even more economic growth because of our housing costs primarily. The thing that's one of the most there's two things that's detrimental to growth here in Youngstown. Okay. And one is crime, number one. We continue to have an outrageous crime rate with even fewer people. But crime rate alone doesn't stop people, because New York's crime rate is way beyond Youngstown. But they have everything else going for it too. In our educational system. Okay. And the sixth ward in particular, one of the reasons why I was like, about this ARP money and stuff like that, it's like, we can't come back in the sixth ward. Before we redrew the lines, the sixth ward had no public school, no public playground. So if you're looking to move, and our housing values online was just horrible. So you had all those three things, and we led in the number of homicides was inside the number of homicides in the sixth ward. No school. Like I said, going through the whole thing there, the only public facility we had on the sixth ward was the fire station. So why would you move here to the south side of Youngstown, to the sixth ward in particular, when there's nothing going on? And the city was showing that it had no interest. I still say we had the city as a whole, the administration as a whole, has very little interest. If you had interest, you would take more of those dollars and pour them. I don't say take all of it, but it has to be more than the $2 million that each council person took. Okay, we still, we had $20 million that you could have put into the three sides of town that needed it the most. Everybody wants their share, but truthfully, the south side and the east side, it has needs. Okay, and remember I said about our dollars, about $220 million, that it was looking so gray? Okay, Mike Street is a clean street, but it is not pretty. It's the number one quarter inside the city. It's the number 2 quarter in the county. Come on. And don't tell me about, we're going to be working on it down the road. I've been on council since 2016. Previous mayor said, I'm going to start working on the corridor. This mayor, I'm going to start working on the corridor. Let me tell you how much has been poured into the corridor. The $150,000 of the $2 million of ARP funds that I put in for a corridor, for my part of Market Street. That's all that's been put in. They want that. This is how you get people. They have to look and say, I want to move there. Listen, they want to kind of move on my street right now. Okay, I'm happy about that. It's a good looking street, getting better looking. Then that has to go to the next street, and the next street, and the next street, and just keep on going before all the money runs out. Okay, because here's what's happened in the past. This is where you can wrap up if you choose to. One of the things I said when I was running, I asked the people of the sixth ward, I said, would you please trust me and give me time to do some of this stuff? I give you my word that I will not go up there and say, I'm sorry. We had this money, we did it all over here. I'm sorry, we ran out of money. I said, just give me time. I cannot undo what was 30 and 40 years in the making. But I said, rest assured, to the best of my ability, I'm going to spread that wealth. And I got parts of the ward who are mad because I've kept my word about sharing that wealth. And I tell them, pound salt. We're going to share this wealth, what little we got, because that's the right thing to do. And in the end, everybody will benefit.
"40 Years of the Business Journal" is sponsored by Compco and these participating sponsors.